Now, if you're just jumping on with us this morning, my husband told me not to mess with greatness when it comes to making oatmeal, so I'm going to allow him to do that. I'm a little under the weather, so I apologize for this. There's looking informal and there's looking kind of wrecked, and that's how I feel like I look this morning, but I am not well in so many ways as mom. Anyways, a couple big news items I want to go over with you that I think are really important. And one of the things that I want to do with SmartHER News that will separate it from other news organizations is that when we hear the news of a death of an American soldier, I want you to know about it right away. And I want it to be one of the first stories you hear about, not one of the stories that's the fifth or sixth. And just yesterday, we got news that another American soldier had been killed because of this roadside bomb attack in Afghanistan last week. He had been injured. We had known that there were other injuries in this attack, which was the deadliest against American forces in Afghanistan this year. But we didn't know their conditions. And this 24-year-old ended up dying in Germany, where he was taken to the major military hospital. And this is where anyone would go if they had a major injury. They would not stay in Afghanistan. They would be moved there. I'm closing my door, not only because I like a little privacy, just you and me, but my son has had a lot of questions since we were talking about this story last week, and I try to answer them as they come up. But he's 4 years old, and sometimes I'm not sure how much to answer other than just to real directly. Today, though, we're going to be talking a lot about funerals, and I think it's more appropriate to just let him eat his oatmeal. So, one thing you should know about soldiers when they deploy, which I didn't know until I dated and married a military man, is before my husband deployed, he often, each time, planned his will. And that would make sense. You're going into a combat zone. But also, he was encouraged, and he did, plan parts of his funeral. What music would you like to have played? What would you like to have read? These are things that he had to think about. And it's shocking to think about that, isn't it? Especially for someone that's 24, like this young man. I don't know if that's the case. I was asking my husband if across the military this happens before deployments. But he said it would be wise practice to do it. And officers would have the responsibility of encouraging young soldiers to do that. So I want you to think about this 24-year-old Jason McClary and his family. His aunt was talking about how he always wanted to go into the Army, and he had deployed. He had a Purple Heart, so he had been injured before, but he was living out his dream. So we're going to think about that family today. It ties into another soldier we're going to be talking quite a bit about over the next several days and have been. This young soldier who died in Afghanistan was 24. President George H.W. Bush was 94 when he died, so separated by those 70 years. But the president also had made plans for his funeral. And did you know, I was looking at the White House Association, that when presidents assume the office, one of the things they're supposed to do is think about their funeral. That's one of the things that they're supposed to do as they assume the office. And one of the requests from President H.W. Bush is that there's not some sort of official procession for his funeral in Washington, D.C. So that's going to be done as part of his request. He joined the military at age 18 after Pearl Harbor, which we're going to be marking this week on Friday, ironically. And I was reading about him being shot down because he was a pilot, and he was the lone survivor in a series of different planes that were shot down on that day. He was rescued by a submarine, but others that were not rescued did not fare as well. All of this happening, at age 20. So he joined the military, got married to Barbara at 19, and then had this experience at age 20. And one of the things I want you to think about with him is that we're not just celebrating a president. We're celebrating a man who was a successful businessman, but also head ambassador to the UN. He was head of the CIA. He was vice president. He served in so many different roles. But how miraculous that he survived what could have been a devastating attack against anyone in the military. He's not only the longest living president, but he had the longest marriage of any president as well, which I thought is a really nice fact. Because of his death, you're seeing a lot in the funeral procession and the amount of time that lawmakers want to pay respects to him, which this does not happen all the time, and certain allowances are made. there are a series of delays that are happening in Washington, D.C., and also not only in Washington, D.C. The Grammys decided that they're not going to announce the Grammy nominees, for example. But we have a huge sort of budget showdown before the end of the year. And this is where there's going to be kind of, I don't want to anticipate a fight, but there's already tension about the president wanting $5 billion for a border wall. You have lawmakers that have to figure out allocations for all sorts of money. I mean, that's the job of Congress, the House of Representatives. They have to come to some sort of agreement. And because of the funeral, we were expecting to start that debate this week. And there were, going to be a series of deadlines. Now it looks like the Congress is trying to delay this for 2 weeks, which gets us right up until right before Christmas, which both can add some healthy pressure because lawmakers want to go home, and also could motivate temporary agreements that get to the beginning of the year. The reason why some lawmakers would not want to do that is at the beginning of next year, you have a whole new Congress coming in. The House flips to be Democrat as they get inaugurated, and so then you have a different dynamic. So there's going to be some of those that really do want to work because Republicans have the majority in both houses still. So I just want to, you guys, unfortunately, that's going to be something that we're going to be thinking about right before the Christmas holiday. Merry Christmas. It's going to be so much fun. Maybe they'll be inspired. I mean, you can always hope. I know it doesn't seem likely, but we can always hope. So those are a couple of things I want you guys to know today. And as always, please continue to check out our website. Thank you again. I mentioned this yesterday, but the full video is out to Taryn, our friend of SmartHER News, who is 39 weeks pregnant up in Alaska and who relayed to us what it was like to live through the 7.0 magnitude earthquake on Alaska last Friday. Remember, aftershocks are still happening. They're getting less, but this was a major event in a state that's kind of all of a sudden off the front pages. And I think it's important to recognize what some of our friends in Alaska are going through. All right, guys, have a great day. Go get them. I'm going to pop some